Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast. Reacting to the Jets-Giants game, a 13-10 final score. If you enjoy incompetent football, bad franchises, injuries, missed field goals, teams trying to beat themselves, this was the game for you. And bad weather. So, honestly, first and foremost, shout out to the fans that went to this game because I don't know how you sat through it. I know some people probably left early, but to sit through a 13-10 game, which was mostly a 10-7 game for most of it, I don't know how you do it. Obviously, a disappointing loss if you're a Giants fan. I didn't really care if they won or lost at this point. I mean, look, whether you're 3-5 or 2-6, who cares? You're not going to make the playoffs. The Giants now have the third pick in the draft, so that's the good news here. And honestly, at this point, I'd rather just have a better pick. There's no point in winning anymore. There's, players are going to play to win. Coaches are going to coach to win. But as for the front office and the fans that would rather see the team have a better shot at a franchise quarterback, I think losing is fine in that regard. So whether that's the right way to root for a team, that's up for your interpretation, but that could be the best thing in the end. So yeah, the Giants fall to 2-6. It's another rough season here of just injuries. Of course, Tyrod left the game with the ribs injury. He's staying in a hospital overnight, so hopefully he's okay. Tommy DeVito came in and just looked horrible. He was 2 of 7 for -1 passing yards. The Giants had -9 passing yards on the day. First team since 2000 to have a number that low in the passing yards department. So pretty embarrassing game for the Giants, and I've seen some embarrassing ones. It's not like week 1 bad because, even in that game, the Giants had a really good first drive, and it ended with the blocked kick. And, at least for Dallas, they put up points. But I think this is a game where just both teams looked horrible. I don't think Jets fans walk away from this game feeling great about their team. And obviously the Giants, you feel even worse. So I feel like this is just an ugly game all around. One of those games that you wish you just didn't have to sit down and watch for 3.5 hours. But we do. And, yeah, so just is what it is. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like, always helps out, and let's get into it. So we'll start with the offense like we always do, and we'll start with Jamie Gillan. That's how effed up this game was. We'll start with the freaking punter. Jamie Gillan had 13 punts in one game. That doesn't look right, but this game apparently broke a record for the most punts in a game since 2003. So it's embarrassing. So 13 punts for Jamie Gillan. I want to see how many punts Thomas Morstead had. He did well. He had a few punts inside the 5-yard line. He had 11 punts, 48 yards average, 4 punts inside the 20. For the Giants, they had 5 punts inside the 20. Okay, that's nice. But yeah, just that every time there was a third down, it seemed like neither team can get one. The Jets almost didn't have one the entire game. I think it took the Jets until very late in the game to convert on a third down. They were 2 for 15, the Jets. The Giants were 2 for 19, so I guess technically the Giants were worse, but they picked one up earlier in the game. And the Giants did, kill the Jets in time of possession, 38 to 25 minutes, but, the Giants just lacked efficiency in the red zone. They lacked any type of passing game whatsoever. Saquon Barkley had 36 carries, which I believe ties a career high. I think he had 36 last year in that game versus the Texans. And this game kind of felt like that in a way because they were just running play after play after play. I think Jordan Raanan had a tweet that at one point the Giants had 33 design running plays out of 34 plays. So it's just crazy how this offense was ran. I'm sure a lot of people are pissed off with Brian Daboll. Yes, it was going into overtime. The Giants haven't completed a pass since the second quarter. They've called design runs on 33 of their last 34 offensive plays from Jordan Raanan. So crazy stuff there. But it was really tough to watch. You knew every single play. They were going to try and just jam it up the middle to Saquon Barkley. And sometimes it worked. Most times it didn't. For the passing offense, there was nothing. I mean, the Giants' leading receiver in this game was it's Darren Waller, who left the game in the second quarter or maybe first quarter with a hamstring injury. So hopefully he's fine. I don't know how bad that's going to be. But Matt Breida had 1 catch for 4 yards, and so did Darren Waller. 1 catch for 4 yards led the team. Saquon had 3 catches for 0 yards. Darius Slayton had 1 catch for -1 yards. So an embarrassment there in the passing department, but it was 14 total passing attempts, 7 each for Tyrod and DeVito. Tyrod had 8 yards passing, 4 of 7. Of course, he got knocked out pretty early. DeVito came in, pretty much handed off the ball, but DeVito was 2 for 7 for -1 yards. I just felt like every single DeVito pass was behind the line of scrimmage. We saw the passes in overtime that were for negative yards to Saquon Barkley. So no surprise that the Giants had no success at all passing the ball. But as I mentioned, Saquon, 36 carries, 128 yards. That's 3.6 a carry. Not the most efficient, but that was the only source of offense they had. Tyrod was good on the ground before leaving. He had 5 carries for 33 yards, 6.6 a carry. Wan'Dale had 17 yards for 2 carries. Matt Breida, 13 yards on 5 carries. DeVito was 12 yards on the ground for 4 carries and had the rushing touchdown on the read option, which on that drive, the Jets absolutely just shot themselves in the foot twice. I think there were 2 plays on that drive where there was unnecessary roughness, and the Giants were even lucky to get a touchdown on that drive. I mean, it probably should have been a field goal at most, but the Jets, as I said, they shot themselves in the foot. And it almost cost them the game. I mean, it came down to 1 second to go, and Zach Wilson got that spike off just in time. But that one drive of the Tommy DeVito rushing touchdown, the Jets not being disciplined almost cost them that game, which would have been rough. But there's really not much else to say on offense. I mean, the offensive line did what they could. They weren't fantastic, but it wasn't horrible either. I feel like 4 sacks is pretty much on par for what this team does on a weekly basis the past few weeks. The Jets had way more penalty yards, not way more, but 12 more penalty yards, 9 penalties for 85 yards. The Giants had 6 penalties for 73 yards. Just going through my game notes, I mean, the Giants probably should have had a touchdown on the first drive. There was a nice throw by Tyrod in the corner of the end zone to Slayton, and Slayton just could not track it. I feel like he turned his head twice and couldn't locate the ball, and it fell incomplete. So the Giants settled for the 30-yard field goal to make it 3-0. And that's another topic, by the way, is Graham Gano, who I believe in the postgame admitted that he does need knee surgery in the offseason. So obviously Graham Gano is trying to gut through it and keep playing for this team, and I get it. You're like a pretty highly paid kicker at this point, and Graham Gano has been awesome as a Giant. But the last few weeks, Graham Gano has not been that good. He's 1 for 3 today. He made the 31-yarder in the first quarter, as I mentioned, but Graham Gano missed 2 field goals. One of them basically lost them the game. It wasn't all his fault, of course, but a big miss at the end. So I feel like Graham Gano, you may have to shut him down for a bit, maybe the entire season. I don't know how bad this knee surgery is going to be. I guess one good thing from this game is Gunnar Olszewski. I don't know how to pronounce his name or last name, but Gunnar Olszewski, maybe the former Patriot. I think he was a Steeler maybe at one point, or I'm probably thinking of someone else. But yeah, he had a nice game returning punts. He had 6 punt returns for 56 yards. That's more production than we usually get, so pretty happy about that. But really not much else to say offensively. I'm trying to go through certain plays, and there was a Tyrod 17-yard run. Gano missed a 47-yard kick, and there may have been a bad snap there. Darren Waller got ruled out in the second quarter, as I mentioned. Tyrod injured on the self-passing play. It was a weird play where the ball slipped out of Tyrod's hands. He caught it, and he went down on the sidelines, and that was the end of it. Not much else. I mean, look, there was really nothing going on there. There was the DeVito read option touchdown in the third quarter, so that was good to see. And the Giants were almost able to close out this game. Now, this was the big controversial call. And honestly, Brian Daboll probably effed up. I'm not going to lie. I love Brian Daboll. He was awesome last year, coach of the year. But in this particular instance, I feel like he really effed up. So there was a chance for the Giants on 4th and 1 from the Jets' 17-yard line, so you're well into Jets territory. They would have to go the whole field to get a field goal and tie the game. Instead of going for the 1 yard, the Giants decide to trot on Graham Gano for a 35-yard field goal. And by the way, Graham Gano has not been himself lately. I think we knew that. And Graham Gano missed the field goal, which then gave the Jets, a somewhat shorter field. It was still a 3-point game, and it gave them enough time to go down and tie the game and ultimately win the game in overtime. So Brian Daboll should probably take some heat for not going for it on the 4th and 1, up by 3 on the Jets' 17-yard line. Like, I get your quarterback is Tommy DeVito, but you have Saquon Barkley. I feel like 7 out of 10 times you give Saquon a carry there, it's probably going for a first down. So I don't know what exactly the percentage is. I definitely made that up in my head, but think about it. The guy averaged 3.6 yards per carry today. What's the math there? If you gave him like, X amount of chances to go 4th and 1, how many times does Saquon get it? I feel like 7 out of 10 is a pretty reasonable amount of times. So personally, I would have went for it there, but it just seemed like the ultimate tank job by the Giants there at the end of this game, which, hey, I respect it. If you get us a great quarterback in the end, I respect it, but just a terrible way to coach a game, in my opinion. The Giants had the ball first in overtime. It was horrible. There was a 10-yard penalty for holding. Then there were the couple, passes to Saquon that went nowhere. I think one of them was no gain. The other was a 1-yard loss. So then it was 3rd and 21, and he went for Saquon again, incomplete. I think that ball got tipped and almost intercepted, so that would have been the game right then and there. But just a really disappointing overtime offensive sequence right there. And you can tell the fans were frustrated. Fans were booing. They were not going downfield at all. I mean, everything the Giants offense did was behind the line of scrimmage, and you cannot win that way. They almost did. They came literally a second away from winning that way, but you just can't do it, especially for an extended period of time. So, the Giants kind of got what they deserved. And the question is, like, if Tommy DeVito's that bad that you can't trust him to throw the ball downfield at all, why is he on the roster in the first place? And I believe a reporter asked Brian Daboll that at the end, saying that, hey, Tyrod Taylor's had an injury history. If Tommy DeVito, if you don't trust him enough to throw the ball more than 7 times and even take one shot downfield, then why is he on the roster? And Brian Daboll tried to say, well, it was just the flow of the game. It was a defensive game, all that stuff. But, like, still, I mean, you can't have a quarterback on your roster if you think he's that bad. Like, this was probably worse than, like, Jake Fromm. This was worse than Mike Glennon. I mean, it was bad. We've seen some bad quarterback play by the Giants in recent years. And whether it was, as I mentioned, Fromm, Glennon, DeVito, Tyrod today looked pretty awful when he was in there. Daniel Jones has had his bad moments. I mean, I just want this fan base to witness great quarterback play at some point. That's all I want, really. I just want to find a franchise quarterback and have sustained success for the next 10 to 15 years. That would be ideal, to end up with Caleb Williams or Drake May. So I know it's week 8 going into week 9. We don't want to talk about that shit, but, like, I just got to be honest. Like, that's really all I care about at this point. Like, they're 2-6. If I'm the Giants, I'm trading pieces this week. There's no reason why. I think the trade deadline's on Tuesday, right? The 31st. So if I'm the Giants, I'm doing everything I can to get Leonard Williams out of here, who has been better lately. Hopefully that's more value for him. Get Adoree Jackson out of here. I probably would trade Saquon Barkley, but they probably won't because they're the Giants, and that's John Mara's guy. So don't see it happening. But anybody you can get some draft picks for, even if it's Paris Campbell, that's fine too. Darius Slayton, like whoever you want to trade and get some draft picks for. This is a great draft, apparently, not just quarterbacks, but everything. Like, try and get as many picks as you can. The Giants don't have that many picks anyway in this upcoming draft. So if I'm the Giants, you're 2-6, make some moves, get more picks. It just makes all the sense in the world. That's pretty much it for the offense. I'm trying to see, like, as I mentioned, this game had like the most punts since 2003. Their -9 passing yards was the most or fewest by a team since 2000. There's another tweet here. The Giants had a 97.9% chance to win this game today. So, it's a shame. Like, I feel bad for the guys in the locker room. Like, when I say I'm fine losing as a fan, people for some reason don't understand. Like, I understand that players don't feel that way. Players are not tanking. I completely get it. You're playing for a contract. You're playing for pride. Players still want to win. Players don't care if the team has a franchise quarterback next year. Maybe some do, but Leonard Williams is not out there giving any type of shit about Caleb Williams. Like, he doesn't. Maybe he does because of USC. I'm just kidding. But you get the point. Like, these guys are still playing to win. Brian Daboll is still playing to, coaching to win. How does Joe Schoen feel? He might have more of a long-term view of like, okay, I'm fine losing this game if it means we get a better pick. Like, a front office may feel that way. We saw the perfect example of that back in that game when the Eagles benched Jalen Hurts during his rookie year for Nate Sudfeld. Every Giants fan remembers that, about how the Eagles kind of screwed us out of a playoff spot. But I understood it. I was one of the few Giants fans that was like, hey, they did the right thing, and look how good the Eagles are, and look how much value they've gotten since that pick. I think they flipped that pick to somebody. They got a bunch of draft picks in return. It worked out perfectly. So I'm a big picture guy. I say that all the time. I have no problem with, the front office wanting to tank, or, the owner, even our owner would never, but like, Joe Schoen's a pretty smart guy for the most part. I feel like he probably has a big picture view of this entire thing. So But as I said, players are not tanking. Coaches are not tanking. Like, you can't expect that. But I think as a fan, you can root for whatever you want. When you're 2-6, I feel like it's all fair game at that point. If you want to root for a draft pick, go for it. If you want to rattle off some wins and end up with 6 or 7 wins, then that's fine. But, I don't agree with that personally. But as I said, players are going to play hard. That just is what it is. On the defensive side of the ball, shout out to this guy right here, Kayvon Thibodeaux. Awesome game. I mean, I feel very good for Kayvon. Like, I feel like a lot of the fan base was just fed up with him after like 2 or 3 games, and it's like, guys, it's like 2 or 3 games. Like, give him some time. He showed enough signs last year where he's good. And Kayvon, I believe now, I saw from a tweet somewhere that he's on pace for 16 sacks now. That's what one great game will do for you. Kayvon had 3 sacks today. He had 6 solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble on the first drive, which led to the Giants' field goal. I mean, the defense absolutely did enough for them to win this game, which is kind of like the crappy part about it. I feel like the Giants' defense now for 3 straight games has been phenomenal. Some other guys who looked great today. Cordell Flott made a couple of awesome plays. Bobby Okereke did his thing as usual. I mean, there were some bad parts. Dory Jackson with the terrible, pass interference at the end. You hate to see that part. Dexter Lawrence had a sack, and I feel like he may have been held a couple times at the end, too, that were not called. Like, I figured for sure, like, oh, that's a flag. And they didn't throw it, so I was kind of surprised by that. I really did think that Dexter Lawrence kind of drew some holding calls that were not called. But, who else? Deonte Banks had a up and down game. I would say like the first quarter or so, he made some nice plays. He had a great pass breakup on like a curl to Garrett Wilson. But I feel like for how good Garrett Wilson is, I feel like he did a good job, for a rookie. And, Wilson did have 7 catches for 100 yards, but I feel like he did all he could. Like, it wasn't that bad of a performance. Like, I think we saw enough signs there where it's like, all right, like Deonte Banks played well today for the most part. So I wasn't that disappointed by him. But going through the rest of the game and what the defense did, I mentioned the Kayvon forced fumble. Jihad Ward recovered it. Giants came away with 3 points there. Kayvon had a big run stop on a 3rd and 1 to force a punt. I mentioned the Deonte Banks pass breakup on Garrett Wilson. The Breece Hall 50-yard touchdown, which was like a straight-up dump-off pass by Zach Wilson. Just one of those, like, check down for a few yards. And that should have went for like 5-6 yards at most, and somehow Breece Hall, as good as he is, found a way to just scamper to the end zone, which made no sense. He went through a bunch of different Giants, and like that's just horrible team tackling. I can't call out one person right there. That's like you have to find a way to bring that man to the ground. So just awful tackling by the Giants, and we've definitely seen our fair share of that this season. Jason Pinnock, I didn't mention him. He had a couple nice plays. He did break up a nice play where I think it was Tyler. Is it Tyler Conklin? Jack Conklin. No, Jack Conklin's the Brown. What the hell is Conklin's name? CJ Uzomah. Tyler Conklin. All right, that really threw me for a loop. But Tyler Conklin had a what would have been a first down catch on like an out route, and Jason Pinnock broke that up. So a great play by him. Cordell Flott had a really nice pass breakup on a really good throw by Zach Wilson, a pass intended for Allen Lazard to the left sideline. So Flott had a couple nice plays. Pinnock made some big plays. The Giants did recover a fumble on a bad snap, and the Jets were down to like their 5th string center or something like that. It was crazy. They were down to their 3rd center in this one game alone, I think. So that was just tough for them. There was a pass interference on Deonte Banks on a 3rd and 15. I don't think it was a good call. That's what I wrote down at least. I can't remember the play off the top of my head, but I feel like that was a crappy call on Deonte Banks. I'm trying to think what happened in that situation, but I'll have to watch it back. Pinnock had another pass breakup on Conklin to force a punt. Then in overtime, the defense had the 2 pass interference plays that pretty much lost them the game. There was the 3rd and 10 Deonte Banks pass interference on Garrett Wilson, but he caught the ball anyway and got a couple extra yards out of it. So, sometimes you have to tip your cap to a great receiver. There was a 3rd and 5, of course, the PI on Adoree Jackson, which set up the Jets for a game-winning field goal. So just a crazy game, and, you go through it at the end, like, how do you lose that game? You had that type of lead, and it should have been over. The Giants had a 3-point lead. They were on the Jets side of the field on the 17-yard line with, how much time? 28 seconds left or 27 seconds left. I mean, you have to win that game. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's frustrating to see, the teams you root for just can't close out games that they should be closing out. And I've seen that with the Brooklyn Nets through 2 games so far this season, so I get it. I've been through it a lot lately as a fan. The Jets offense in overtime, I'm trying to think what they did here. So there was the Breece Hall run for no gain, stopped by Kayvon Thibodeau. Incomplete pass. Then there was the 3rd and 10 pass interference on Deonte Banks. Breece Hall 5-yard gain. So it got to a 3rd and 5 on the Giants' 45-yard line. So if the Giants were able to get a stop there, then they could have forced a punt probably. But unfortunately, Adoree Jackson got caught out of position. And I think it was, I forget who the receiver was, but the receiver had to come back for the ball, and Adoree Jackson was right there, and it just hit Adoree in the back basically. And 9 times out of 10, a official's gonna throw the flag there. So it kind of is what it is. That's the rules. So can't complain too much about it. And the final field goal, I really did think in real time that he missed it. It really looked like he missed it wide left at first. I think Dexter Lawrence said in the post game that Leonard Williams was the one who tipped that final field goal. And I guess he just got a piece of it to make it go a little off to the left, but unfortunately it still went through. If he did miss that, this game probably ends in a tie, and I do hate ties, so I guess it is what it is. But just not a fun game to watch. I got to be honest. It felt like 2021 end of the season. Jake Fromm, Mike Glennon once again. It just felt like that. Right now the Giants, they don't have a quarterback next week. It's Tommy DeVito. I'm sure they're going to sign somebody else, some other type of veteran. Who that is, I have no idea. I think Matt Barkley is a name who gets brought up a lot because he was with Dable back in Buffalo, I believe. So maybe it's Matt Barkley, whatever. But right now the Giants are 5.5-point dogs in Las Vegas next week, and the Raiders are not that good of a team. But the Raiders do play Monday tomorrow, so we'll see if they have any injuries. Garoppolo should be back tomorrow, I saw. So we'll see if he makes it through the game. But I just don't see the Giants winning next week. But as I said, it is what it is. Daniel Jones, apparently, they're looking to bring him back against Dallas in Week 10. But I think realistically with Jones, nobody knows when he's coming back. I think people are making educated guesses, but the guy has still not been cleared for contact. So for me to sit here and say, oh, there's a 100% chance Jones is back by the Dallas game, I can't say that. I have no idea. I don't think the Giants even know. I think they're kind of shooting for that. They're kind of making that their goal to get him back for that Week 10 Dallas game, but there's no guarantee. So even if Jones comes back that game, that's a rough first game to come back to against that defense who today looked amazing against the Rams. So that's a tough place to be. So as for Tyrod, I have no idea if it's a lung or a ribs issue. We'll see how bad this is. Hopefully he's fine, but with an injury like that, definitely concerning. But we'll see. It really depends on when these quarterbacks can come back, whether it's Tyrod or Jones, whoever comes back first. I feel like until they get one of those guys back, they're probably not going to win a game. I don't know how you win games with Tommy DeVito in the NFL. It just doesn't feel like it adds up. So, if he's back for Dallas, I still don't think they win that game. The schedule to close out the year is you have some easier games, but it's still pretty tough overall, I would say. At Dallas, at Washington, you have the Patriots and Packers at home, which is okay, those seem relatively winnable. At the Saints, at the Eagles, tough games, especially the Eagles. Home versus the Rams, home versus the Eagles. I mean, we'll see. But if they don't get their quarterbacks back, if Jones is not cleared in time, or if Jones is just not cleared the rest of the year, which is, as I said, it's still up, we have no idea. Nobody really knows. They're just kind of just making their best educated guess. If Jones is not back for a very long time, or maybe the entire year, if Tyrod's out for a very long time, or maybe the entire year, then if it's DeVito and some guy off the street at quarterback, I don't see them winning many games here. They might win 1 or 2 more at most. So, there is a chance. I mean, as I said, there is a chance this team has a very high pick in the draft. It probably is the best thing for this team going forward, long term, which is all I care about. I don't care about the rest of this year. As I mentioned, you're 2-6. It's over. Right now I'm worried about, can you get a franchise quarterback? Can you get Caleb? Can you get Drake May? That's what matters to me right now. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and we'll see what happens. I feel like you don't even have to root against the Giants because they're just not going to be competitive against most of these teams. You really think the Giants are going to go into Dallas with Tommy DeVito and beat the Dallas Cowboys? No, it's not going to happen. So, you just sit there and watch, and you see what happens. You observe. You hope that the young guys get better. You hope Evan Neal comes back and plays better. You hope Kayvon keeps this up and plays like an all-pro player. And we'll see if the young guys can keep it up. But that's pretty much all I have to look forward to right now. So it sucks that we're halfway through the year basically, and the season's over, but luckily, as Giants fans, we're used to that, and we'll see what happens. And, I'm not a fan of the Jets saying, like, oh, we run New York and all that shit. Like, no, like, you guys suck today. Like, the Jets would not have beat any other team in the NFL this week. If you want to run around and throw a parade about it, go for it. But, like, you beat Tommy DeVito, bro. Like, nobody cares. Like, the Jets are going nowhere. Zach Wilson's horrendous. I don't care if he looked good in the final, the final 2 drives. Like, he looked horrendous. He threw an out route, not even an out route. It was like a play where he was rolling out the pocket and Breece Hall was in the flat and he was wide open. He threw the ball on the ground. I mean, I feel like you can get a guy from the stands to make that type of throw. I'm just like, you're not going anywhere with Zach Wilson. Now, maybe Aaron Rodgers is back. I still don't think it's going to happen. He looks fine in the pregame warmups. He looks pretty good, but it's still such a long shot to come back from an Achilles tear that fast, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't listen. As for who runs New York, you know who the answer is? It's the one team that actually plays in New York, the Buffalo Bills. They run New York. So let's not get in this stupid competition here. But anyway, for those who sat through that horrible game, I mean, God bless you, but I was there too. It is what it is. -9 passing yards once again. 12 first downs each for these teams. Horrible third down efficiency. 4 sacks each for these teams, 24 total punts. Just a very ugly football game. But hopefully against the Raiders, they look a bit more competent. But can't guarantee that because it doesn't look like we have a quarterback next week. So we'll see what happens. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time.